Yes, perfect.
The town of Aurora acknowledges that the Anishinaabe lands on which we live and work are the traditional and treaty territory of the Chippewas of Georgina Island, as well as many other nations whose presence here continues to this day. As the closest First Nation community to Aurora, we recognize the special relationship the Chippewas have with the lands and waters of this territory. They are the water protectors and environmental stewards of these lands, and as a municipality, we join them in these responsibilities. We further acknowledge that Aurora is part of the treaty lands of the Mississaugas and Chippewas, recognized through Treaty 13, as well as the Williams Treaties of 1923. A shared understanding of how the rich cultural heritage that has existed for centuries and how our collective past brought us to where we are today will help us walk together into a better future. Let it be. Thank you. May I have a motion to approve the agenda as circulated by the Legislative Services?
Joanne, I'll do it.
So I'm sorry, I can't see any hands.
Mine's up. Joanne
Joanne?
Spitzer.
Oh, Joanne, thank you, Joanne. Yes, I can see you now, Joanne. And
I'll second it, Marilyn Williams.
Thank you, Marilyn. Appreciate that. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Aye. Hi. Hi. Okay. Did I do this too late? Are there questions or comments on the agenda? I think we've already approved it, haven't we, Ashita?
Yeah, yes, we have, Madam Chair, so we can move on.
I'm sorry, I should have asked, are there any questions or concerns about the agenda? Thank you, seeing none. Are there any declarations of pecuniary interest? Seeing none, we'll move on to the receipt of the minutes. I would need a mover and a seconder to receive the meeting minutes of April 9th, 2025.
I move.
Marilyn Williams,
Hi, thank you. And our seconder is?
Elaine Martini will second.
Thank you, Arlene Martini. Okay. I guess, are there any questions or comments on the minutes? No. All those in favor?
Aye.
And we have no delegations this evening, but we do have a memorandum from the Accessibility Advisor, site plan on 28 Sunday Drive. What a lovely name. May I have a mover and seconder to put this item on the floor for discussion?
I'll move it. John?
Thank you, John.
I'll second it, Elaine.
Thank you, Elaine. Thank you guys for helping me out. Okay, so are we going to have a presentation on this?
So I could speak to it, Madam Chair. So back in February, so at our February 12th meeting, so we did meet to discuss this specific plan.
Mm-hmm.
And we discussed various aspects and provided some suggestions. This is the dealership that was being proposed. So talking about the relocation of barrier-free parking spots, trying to move them closer to the building, installation of the accessible washroom on that second floor, mainly for staff, and additional clearance spaces at the main entrance as the bollards were there and blocking that space with the seating and that sort of thing. So what I wanted to do as with our past term, our previous committee for the last couple of years, one of the comments was just providing a closure with any of the items and an update as they get complete. So this is one that actually came back relatively quickly. We provided the comments back in February, they were addressed, and here we are in June. And again, at this time, I submitted a comments back to say there's no further comments at this time, but I more so wanted to table this just to let this committee know that the comments that we put forward have been addressed in this application.
So thank you. They haven't been just considered. They've been accepted.
Correct.
Oh, that's wonderful news. Okay, I'm very glad to hear that. Thank you for your work on this. So are there any questions or comments? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. And we have no informational items.
We have,
Do we?
sorry, Madam Chair, we have item 7.2, which is
Oh,
the
of course.
discussion on the multi-year accessibility plan where our accessibility advisory provided some updates. Yeah, so that's 7.2.
Thank you. That's very important. Thank you. Are there any questions on this?
So, through you, Madam Chair, we just need a motion to put the item on the floor
Yeah.
and then over to Greg to provide updates, please.
Okay, then again, I'll ask for a mover and a seconder to put this motion on the floor.
Lois, I'll move. I'll second Joanne.
Thank you very much. Okay, well, would you like to give us an update on this plan?
Love to.
Okay,
There, so through you, just a few items to discuss here. One, I'll start with an update. I circulated the York Region Accessibility Advisory Committee roundtable discussion that happened during National Accessibility Week a couple of weeks ago on May 28th. From this committee, myself was there, Elaine and Allison also attended. Lois was also there. And so we had a roundtable discussion. I'm pretty sure every municipality within York Region was accounted for.
She's supposed to be there.
No, it was invite only. We chatted on the phone.
Yeah.
We had a doctor's appointment. You couldn't make it. But we had at least 1 to 2 Accessibility Advisory Committee members that attended per municipality and 1 or 2 staff that also attended. And there was an opportunity for the Ministry of Seniors and Accessibility, the Assistant Deputy Minister, the Assistant Deputy Minister, Minu, spoke about where accessibility has come and how far it's been over the last 20, 30, 40 years, and kind of the future of what the AODA is going to look like. They are really focusing more on an educational approach moving forward. How can we move beyond the minimum standard? What else can be done with the standard beyond a legislative requirement? And then the Director of Compliance was also there, Lori Burke, who talked more about compliance within the province. What do large, medium, and small organizations look like? There were a large, I think, if I remember correctly, about 50-60% of organizations submitted compliance within the province, which is good. We still got some room to go. A lot of them were municipalities as well. And then beyond that, for those that weren't compliant, as the ministry went to speak to them and tried to get them to compliance, they had about a 90% compliance rate with those organizations that weren't compliant, and then they worked with the province, and then they became compliant. So it's good, and it sounds like there's a lot of organizations within the province that are willing to be compliant. In some cases, they just didn't know their requirements and what that meant for their specific business or organization. In others, it was, we're not really sure who's responsible. You know, we talk about doctors' offices, but they're leasing buildings. So who's responsible? Is it the business leasing the building, or is it the building owner, or is it the property management company? And so a lot of those clarity and discussions are happening with the province. And then after, in the afternoon, we had a roundtable where every organization was able to comment on some of the challenges that each of us were facing. And the biggest common challenge amongst all the municipalities was uptake within the organization and within the municipality, I should say, of the AODA requirements, which we discuss here in our communities as well. Other businesses, as we provide our recommendations, those recommendations that may not be adhered to, they want to follow a minimum standard and not go above and beyond, that sort of thing. And the other part was funding. Funding was a big part of the challenge, the understanding that to make things more accessible, there's an added cost to it, and some of these businesses don't have that, you know, and then there's just needs that education and clarity to be like, if we start with an accessible lens early in the project, there isn't much cost, if at all, to make a building accessible at the development stage. So it's more of that re-education. The ministry is looking to target larger associations or entities, architects associations, school boards, things like that, homeowner associations, condo board associations, that sort of thing. So if they can start at the association level to educate and have these conversations, the hope is that that information trickles down into the smaller organization or that, you know, sole proprietorship architect company that's developing something. They get that information. So technically, they don't need to be compliant. They need to be compliant. They don't need to file compliance, but it's more of that education piece. So we got that from the ministry. It was pretty much echoed at a month earlier, so the beginning of the month, when I attended the Ontario Network of Accessibility Professional Conference. They were also there. They talked very similar on that. Again, we're going to talk about it a little bit later, but the province, as part of their compliance, they do look at auditing compliance reports. So for those organizations that do submit compliance, they do audit organizations, and there's no rhyme or reason. They just select organizations to audit. And last year, we were told that it's the private and more public organizations and agencies that are going to be looked at. This past May, the last 2 weeks of April, we received a compliance audit ourselves, a thorough 14 questions, 8 pages audit to verify that our compliance audit from 2023 was accurate. So we did submit that on May 2nd, and so it covered if we have our compliance online, do we have an accessibility advisory committee, have we trained our staff and our volunteers, do we have accessible formats, are we building accessible trails, do we have accessible public outdoor eating area, outdoor play spaces, have we created outdoor path travels and pedestrian signals, off and on street parking, have we consulted with on street parking, and are we building off street parking, service counter waiting areas, and are we maintaining our accessible outlets in town? So that was the thoroughness of the audit. It was submitted. I attached 3 additional pages after answering their 8 pages of questions with pictures and proof and all that other stuff. And just this past Friday, we received a follow-up to those responses. So they gave us till this Friday to complete, which is not a lot of time. I did ask for an extension, so we will look to get that re-clarified. Basically, they're just questioning all the things that we submitted originally. And for anything I did not provide a picture or proof for, they now want a picture of proof, which has me running around town taking pictures of different elements this week into next. So that is the thoroughness of this. From my understanding as well, back in February, there were at least 15 to 20 municipalities that received a compliance audit. We, along with another 15 to 20 municipalities, received ours at the end of April. And there was a slew more that received theirs mid-May as well. So they're all municipalities. At this point, it looks like we're over 100 plus municipalities who've received an audit in the province. But again, we in Aurora are lucky enough to have an accessibility advisor position. And again, ensuring that we are compliant and all the things that I did submit, I made sure it did comply. Otherwise, why would I submit them? So I don't have any concerns at this point. It's just the time it's taking to submit that back to the province. So that is that. I'll stop there. I do have some more items. If anyone has any questions on either of those items.
I have a question.
Yes.
What, and what they're setting up and what they're asking for. Is it, who decides? Do they come in and make the decisions themselves on what they see? Or what's making them make those decisions? That you have to do such and such or so and so?
So through you, Madam Chair, they have, it looks like a template. From the sounds of it, a lot of, so the organizations, the municipalities that received the audit at the same time as Aurora did, have the same set of questions. So it sounds like they've created a set of questions to kind of point out different areas. So it goes from every different area of the integrated accessibility standards, the IASR, and it covers one or two questions for each, and they've pinpointed. Back in February, it was heavy on transportation. So there was a lot of questions geared towards transportation. York Region received an audit, Brampton, Mississauga, being that they have their own transportation system. So the audit there was heavy on that. Aurora, in Aurora, we don't, just because York Region does our transportation, we don't have any requirements under the transportation standard. So it looks like they just, and then who they select, I honestly.
Well, I mean, I've served on the accessibility committee now for a few years. And I worked at the Ontario Crippled Children's Centre, which is now Blue Review, for 11 years. And the thing is, I just get concerned about things in town that are staying the same and they're not being changed. You know, I went to the paint store and I got 2 gallons of paint. And I said to the man, would you mind putting them in my car for me? There's cars right in front of your building. So he said, okay. He could hardly open this door because the historical buildings have really heavy doors. And he could hardly open the door, and he's holding 2 cans of paint. And then he's waiting for me to come through with my cane. And so anyway, he looked at me and he said, boy, he said, I guess this needs an automatic door, doesn't it? And I said, yeah, but like, I don't tell anybody I'm on the accessibility committee. But I said, yeah, that would really be a good idea for this store with all the weight you carry and all that, you know, so that I just left. But we've got so much of that all over town. And I mean, I go to a medical building and it has a fairly large parking lot. There's only 2 handicap parking out front. And around the side, there's 1 handicap parking, which is marked reserved for one of the doctors is in a wheelchair. There's a ramp by her wheelchair. At the other end, I didn't have a measuring tape with me, but the curb must be 9 or 10 inches deep. And there's no ramp. And at the back, and the front door has a ramp, which sticks out into the middle of the parking lot. And the back door has no ramp. So other than the little ramp that's there for this lady with the wheelchair, there's no ramp for anybody to come in out of their car from anything else. And that other one, like I had asked a man to help me. And he said, I've never seen a curb so high in my life. So are they meeting their expectations when they build places, and are people catching them on it? Or, I mean, obviously it was built before everybody said you had to do it. But I think they should be brought up to date. I really do, and I really feel, and there's so many stores, and the historical stores have doors that weigh a ton. I'm not kidding you. They're really something unbelievable.
That's a struggle with privately owned
I know.
businesses. They don't have the same requirements that municipalities do. And then there's the whole issue around they only have to change it if they do an extensive renovation or whatever. So hopefully they'll be turning their attention to the privately owned places and doing that. And there's also a health regulation coming out under the AODA. I don't know what it looks like exactly, have you seen it? So maybe it'll address that kind of thing as well, I'm not sure, but it's finding hospitals, if you go to a hospital, it's so inaccessible.
I know.
And of all places, you think it's.
So this medical
Yeah.
this medical
Yeah.
building, there's this
Yeah.
doctor in the wheelchair, she's in the building, she can get up the ramp. But that's the only place that there's a ramp. And it's right at the back where it goes out onto the street,
Right,
you know, and so if you're at the other end of the parking lot, you have to walk the ages, and there's lots of cars there. And to me, there's not enough spaces for people that have challenges.
I think the private sector is the hardest sector to change, like even as they developed the legislation, public sector had to comply first. They gave private sector a long time to have to comply, and they have less.
Well, I have accessibility issues, but if I went to somewhere like the mall, for instance, I hardly ever go there now. But if I went there, I try to find a spot that isn't handicapped so that somebody even worse off than me, with a, you know, has a wheelchair or whatever they have, can get the spot near the door.
Mm.
And I try to do that on a regular basis if I can. But the thing is, it's really difficult, you know, to find these and to help out other people. It really is.
I'm just going to say this is kind of a loose conversation. I don't mind, but if there are people who have comments, could they please address it through the chair? Joanne, I just wanted to tell you, I know somebody who parked in an accessible spot, and did not have a current permit, and they got fined $400. And this is by our bylaw. So I know it makes me crazy when people park in spots that are meant for people with accessible issues. But I'm confident, Greg, maybe you have a comment. I'm confident that our bylaw department is really watching that, because as far as I'm concerned, we don't have enough accessible spots. Greg, do you have any comment on that? And John Lenchek, you've been on this committee for 20 years, maybe? And you've heard these discussions several times. So I'd like to hear your take on this, and if you feel encouraged or discouraged.
Well, I know it's difficult for us to talk to the private sector, but the main focus of this committee is to ensure that services within the town's ownership, buildings, spots are accessible, services are accessible. So I know it's always been a challenge for the private sector, but again, there's a financial burden that some of the small businesses may have in order to install, say, accessible doors. Could be that burden as well. So again, we're not legislated right now to address those issues.
John, did Home Depot or one of the larger businesses have a program to offer ramps to?
Yeah, it was Home Depot. Yeah, I'm not sure if they still do that or not.
Do you have any idea what the uptake was on that? I'm sorry, it's an unfair question. I'm just curious. Because I don't see that many ramps in the old part of town.
No, none at all. You know who was up on that was Tyler. Remember Tyler?
Oh, Tyler, of course.
Yeah, but I don't think Home Depot does that anymore.
The thing that I don't think a lot of people understand, I think this committee does, is that it's so important to for the independence and the just decrease in stress for people who are having accessibility problems, to have these things in place. How did you think the town, well, you said we got 8 pages of audit. What could you just give us perhaps a rundown of what kind of things were in that audit?
I can, yeah.
Well, actually, really what you had to respond to, the 3 pages that you sent back. What kind of issues were those?
So again, I'll touch on your first question on parking, the barrier-free parking in town and bylaw checking. So to you, Madam Chair, I do know that, so again, a bylaw does enforce any town-owned parking. So again, if they're not parking in, if they don't have the stickers or permits in private parking lots, that's not the jurisdiction of bylaw anyways. So only those that are town-owned. And I do know that they do ticket, like you mentioned, you mentioned an example. I was here the other day, bylaw had a meeting out in the front, and on my way out, I saw that there was a ticket on one of the cars in the front when they returned to their vehicle. I also witnessed them take it off, rip it up, and put it back on the bylaw truck on their way out. So, I mean, they do it, absolutely, but I did also witness that as well. I think it's an understanding that if you need it, this is not a temporary, I just need to run in quick parking spots. This is a barrier-free spot. You do require a permit, and you will be fined if you are caught using it. So,
Well,
to that question,
that should be a ticket in itself to tear up a ticket.
well, the individual put it back on the truck, so I'm sure they'll.
So we
When they went back to the truck, they saw it.
I'm going to speak to bylaw about that.
Yeah. Yeah, unless it flew away, who knows? But as for the audit, as I mentioned earlier, it did touch on all aspects of the integrated accessibility standard regulation. So the general requirements: do we have a committee? Are we posting our reports online? To customer service, are we training our staff? A big part of it was the design of public spaces, and that was mainly our outdoor spaces, our trails, our parks, our playgrounds, eating spaces, outdoor path of travel, pedestrian crossing, parking, on and off street parking as well. And then we moved into the inside with service counter waiting areas as well. So it did touch on a lot of, and it was, by the sounds of it, it was very geared towards a municipality with how these questions were targeted. But again, they were looking for examples from 2016 to current. 2016 was the year after the AODA came into effect. We probably don't have as many accessible examples in 2016. But since then, and the examples I provided were town park for playgrounds. That's
Right.
I don't know if we get very much more accessible than that for a playground. We talked about town square for a lot of our examples, from outdoor eating, public eating with the cafe right there, to off-street and on-street parking with the parking lot itself. We are exceeding the AODA standard, and that was evident, but also with the on-street parking surrounding with the library, Mosley Street, and Victoria Street around. There's also barrier-free parking on those streets. So again, showing the diversity of parking around the square itself. So using that as an example, again, that just opened, so it's a great one to use. And the Stronach Recreation Complex for the service counter and waiting area. Again, that just opened with their grand opening of the gymnasium, the complex, and the new service counter that was installed. So I use that as our example as well, which again, far exceeds our AODA standards. So those were the examples provided.
So as a follow-up, they weren't saying you haven't done this, this, and this. They were saying, have you done this, this, and this?
To you, Madam Chair, correct. So the first time they said, have you done it? I submitted my response with yes, and here's my examples of.
Okay, thank you.
My now follow-up to those questions is now complete. So my follow-up needs to be pictures, videos, and pictures with measuring tapes to prove we are 3,000 millimeters from pedestrian crossing to pedestrian crossing signal. At the one intersection I showed, I need to take pictures of the seating at the town square. I need to walk around the block. I take pictures of all the parking in and around town square. And I need to show pictures of town park and the playground and what that looks like. So those are now my follow-ups to basically prove my audit.
Thank you. Are there any other questions or comments? Um, so,
So I do have a few more items, Madam Chair.
but I would like to ask you,
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, every year we have this very long list of an accessibility plan. And we have funds towards that. Are there things on that list for Aurora that are not completed? And if so, would you be able to provide them to the committee for a future meeting?
Yeah, so what I can do for September's meeting, it would just take me a few hours to really just go line by line, but I can absolutely in September's meeting go line by line and provide where we are. All items in the multi-year accessibility plan are actively either being worked on, have been completed, or will be done by the end of the year, if not next. There are only a few items that have not been completed, and for various reasons, either due to cost, due to feasibility, that sort of thing. But absolutely, I can go line by line to provide this committee an updated number by the end of this year. That can be done.
Thank you. And you said with respect to transit, that's under the region.
Correct.
But do you look at all of the areas where people can take public transit? Do you look at those areas to see if they are accessible, or do we wait for the public to tell us?
So that is done through the region. I was in a meeting with yesterday with the transit staff, and they made a comment that 68% of their stops are accessible. The remaining 32% are deemed inaccessible. However, they do have stipulations in place that should somebody require to get off at an inaccessible stop, that they would accommodate and move either down the street to the next boulevard, or they'll work with the commuter to get off at an appropriate stop. And they do have various different. I actually have an item as part of an update as well, but since we're talking about it, they do have various on request trainings, programs, and initiatives, very thorough, very thought out on how transit works, from their Viva service to their YRT to their on request North Central to their on request 65 plus to training. They do on-site training, travel training they call it. So they teach you how to travel via transit, and they have a one-stop shop. You give them a call, they will book you the best service from where you are to where you need to go. They will also transfer you to Toronto, Peel, and Durham, and they have MOUs and Simcoe, sorry. So they have MOUs with our surrounding municipalities and counties, regions and counties, so that if you have to go for some reason to downtown Toronto for an appointment, they will get you from Aurora to St. Mike's, and all you need to do is tell them I want to go to St. Mike's. So YRT does do a lot, and any area that does not have YRT or Viva station or transit, they do have their other requests. So their mobility on demand paratransit program, and then their on request programs as well. So they do have a variety, which some of the stuff I didn't even know that existed myself. But they do have a variety of programming, as well as thorough training with the drivers and the staff, priority and courteous seatings on all their transit and their vehicles as well.
Thank you. When you say a memorandum, MOU, that means a memorandum of understanding with other municipalities. So let's say what if I used a walker, and what does that mean? And I wanted to go down to St. Mike's, how would that work?
Yeah, so to you, Madam Chair, when you call in as a resident looking to book or travel, you can call the 1-888 number and get a hold, or you can download the app and book it there. The app does have some limitations at this point. But if you give them a call and you say, I want to go down to St. Mike's, they will say, where do you live? This is how we're going to get there. They will recommend, if you're not near a YRT transit stop, they will say, okay, we will send on request vehicle to your location. We'll pick you up at the curb. We will take you to the closest YRT stop. From there, you can hop on the next YRT bus. And then if you're not sure what to do at that point, they will have this training. So they will actually send out a YRT staff to your location, and they will sit there and teach you how to get on, how to transfer, how to tap your Presto card, once you get off, what you're going to do. Once you're on the vehicle or the bus, you'll let the bus driver know. They will let you know we're heading up to the stop, your next stop. They'll help you off. If you're now traveling again to Toronto at Steeles, they will come up with agreed upon location where they're going to transfer you from the YRT bus or vehicle to the TTC vehicle or paratran or mobile train. What's TTCs?
Wheeltrains.
Wheeltrains. So they will transfer you via Wheeltrains, and then TTC will take over from there and take you to your location from there. So very similar process. So that memo of understanding with York Region and Toronto is that if you're starting in York Region, we will take over, and our services in Toronto will mirror the services of York Region. Once you're in Toronto and trying to get home, it'll be the same process. You give them a call, then you'll pay the TTC fare, and Wheeltrans will take you from there. Again, take you to the same transfer stop. YRT will be waiting for you to pick you up, take you on, and continue on your way. And it'll be basically the reverse process to get back to your home. So if you're living out in maybe a rural area, or there's no transit near you, or you can't walk or get to that stop, they do have opportunities to pick you up at your home and bring you to the stop. Their big thing is they want to encourage people to use YRT or Viva. So the in-between, you're not going to be expected to walk 5, 10, 15, maybe 200 meters or a kilometer or two to get to the nearest bus stop. They'll pick you up and get you there. So they are really a one-stop shop. They've gotten a lot better than I think we have thought of what YRT is. And again, like I said, there was a lot of things that I learned. Again, the On Request North Central is a service that is only for North Central municipalities, King or a Newmarket, East Gwillimbury, that sort of thing. So the line stops on Dufferin and King. So if you're anywhere in Nobleton, Schomberg area, or if you want to go to Nobleton or Schomberg from Aurora, they'll get you on YRT, get you to that line, and then the On Request North Central will take you into town if you want to go to the Schomberg Library or whatever the case.
So
there's a lot of services.
Thank you. This is very interesting information. I would like to ask if anybody at the table has ever heard of this service or knows of anybody who's used it. See, thank you, Elaine. This is part of the problem, I think, that these services, I have read about it, but I think that might have come to me as a counselor through information from YRT. Because I think that most people would look at a journey to St. Mike's and just throw up their hands, and you can't always get, thank you, you can't always get a friend, like that's a huge car ride and parking and stress of traffic. So sorry, your hand was up. Do you have a comment? Yeah.
It's Lois speaking.
Yes,
You
ma'am.
asked if anybody's familiar with these services and have used them. And my son did travel training. My son is a person with a developmental disability.
Okay.
And years ago, he did travel training. So he's 32 now, and this was when he was first out of school, high school, and was very successful for him. And the YRT advertises this everywhere they go, and
Okay.
their marketing is top notch. They're everywhere. So it is very well known in the disability community, and they work with agencies and that kind of thing. So it's yeah. You asked if people don't know about it, but I would say that they do. The word gets out through all of their marketing and such, and through the agencies. It's a very good program for my son.
Thank you. I'm very glad to hear that. So if a resident calls me, Greg, what do I tell them to do? What's the first thing I tell them to do? To call the 800 number, the 888 number?
To you, Madam Chair, I would recommend to give them a call if they want to use YRT, to give that 188 number a call. I can find it, I don't have it on hand. But as Lois said, I do have a lot of their materials actually on my desk. I took a bunch, and they're very good. They show the maps, they show all the different services. If you want the on request 65 plus, there's a card for that. If you want the on request North Central, they have a separate card, which is very good. And they have a very thorough application process for the mobility on demand para transit program. If that is something that you need,
Thank you.
they have that application as well.
I'm glad to hear this. Thank you. And they could also call you, right?
Absolutely. If they want to give me a call, by all means, and we can walk through it on YRT's websites. And ultimately, again, YRT deals with transit in our community. So any issues with transit really goes to the region, but there is a lot of opportunities.
Thank you. Elaine, you have your hand up.
Yes, it was my question is, for people who only need a temporary basis or just coming into needing the services now, that's where the information to me is lacking a bit. Is there a forum, or is there through the doctors or through some sort of other communication where new people who are just new into using this service are aware of what's available to them?
Again, through you, Madam Chair, if they're interested in transit, I think the education here is to go on York Region Transit's website. There's a lot of resources, a lot of education, and they're just every avenue. So one of the questions that I was asked yesterday in our meeting was, where else can we do? How else can we reach out? And we had conversations about attending university and job fairs and having their services there to talk to students going into college and university, going to high school, grade 12, again, getting them before they even leave. How can they get into town and get to high school? I on my way home, I see a lot of high school students taking transit throughout town. So having those conversations on the younger side, so at least those services are learned about early. I know when I went to university, I couldn't figure out where I had to go and what my TTC schedule was like. To me, it was, I know I needed to take the bus. I had to do my own research, right? But at that time, there was a lot less education than there is now.
Thank you, Elaine.
To do a lot.
Yes, I have to agree that it's a good system to do it in the education system, especially if you've got immigrants and they need to use that system. Having a younger person who's knowledgeable from the school how to run it will help them, especially if there's a language barrier. So that's very good that it's being taught at the school level.
And also what you were talking about, like, let's say somebody's in a cast and then rehabilitation, etc. I would think that the doctor's offices should have information on this. There should be, and it's one thing to say to go online, but there are seniors who are not comfortable doing that. So to have some print information at a doctor's office, at community centers, wherever, maybe not the senior center, for example, like, it would be a really good idea to have print information out there. Do you know if there, Greg, if there is any information available in print?
Drugstores.
Drugstores, another good one.
Seniors hang out there a lot.
Drugstores, maybe the coffee shops too.
There we go.
I mean,
So,
They must have customer service departments where you can phone and get a lot of information that way.
well, but we need to get the message out that there is a phone number that they can phone. Lois?
Yeah. They have, at YRT, they've actually hired a person with a disability who
Good.
goes out all across the region and drops off the leaflets in bus stations and stores and seniors' places and libraries, wherever there's
Library.
public place to pick up information. And so they try to get it out to all of those places. Often, I mean, they probably could do better, but they're doing a great job as it is now. So it is, but if I may, I'd like to ask a question about the transportation question to you on the audit, right? Because municipalities are responsible under the transportation standards for the licensing of accessible taxi cabs. Did you have a question about that, and what does the town do in that scenario?
So through you, Madam Chair, we did not have any transportation questions on our audit. So there was none. Also working with our bylaw, we also don't have any licensed taxis that are up in Aurora. From my understanding, taxis don't want to be licensed this far north. Not many individuals use it, and for them, it's not a financial, it's not a business fiscal opportunity to be up here and be licensed. For the most part, if it's not personal vehicle or public transit, they're taking Ubers. And the only taxi that we had 3 years ago has since stopped being licensed up here. So
And Ubers don't have to get licensed?
Ubers do not need to be licensed.
I was stuck at the kids one time with my grandson. He was on life support and I was gonna stay overnight, and instead I came home. And I phoned Graham Taxi in Toronto, which is a big company, been around for years. And they wanted $165 for me to drive with them from Sick Kids to Aurora. And I phoned Uber and they immediately said 65 to Aurora. And that was the difference. But I usually drive myself, so I was sort of stuck that day.
So through you, Madam Chair, being licensed in a municipality allows the taxi company to pick up in the municipality. So if you're licensed in Toronto, you can pick up in Toronto. But if you're dropping off in Aurora, that's a whole trip back. They cannot pick anyone up until they cross the Toronto border, and then they can pick the next person up. So, you know, that's kind of one of the issues with the taxi company and the industry is for them to be licensed, there's a fee, but at what point are you going to stop? And then you end up paying for that. And it's just a standard fee, right? That the taxi companies are charging, but know that when they drop you off, they cannot pick anyone else up till they get back to Toronto. And that's, you know, where Uber can pick up anyone.
Yeah.
So once they drop off in Aurora, they might pick up, go across. Before you know it, they're out in Milton before they're coming back home in Toronto.
That's why the taxi was so expensive.
Thank you. That's very interesting and important information to know. Does anybody have any other questions? Lois, I'd just like to know, do you know, or Greg, do you know the person who's been hired specially to distribute the information and knowledge, or how could I get it? Maybe you could.
I don't feel comfortable giving the person's name out because I've identified them as a person with a disability.
Okay.
But just know that there's staff, that's just one person, but there's other staff that go around all over York region to, you know, making sure that the information is out there.
Can we find out the person's name? That would be handy for us.
So
You can call Erin, or Mobility Plus, call Mobility Plus.
yeah, so
I would just like to know if the information is, as Elaine said, in drugstores, in libraries. Like, I'd like to know if I'd just like to have the confidence that these important places where people who might require the transportation if they have the information, and if not, how can it be arranged?
To you, Madam Chair. So I just, while we were chatting, I pulled up the number. So it is, sorry, it's not 1888, it's 1-866-668-3978. I know this meeting's being recorded, so it'll be on there as well. But also on their website, they have a provide transit feedback button, and you can provide feedback on any one of those items. You know, specifically from the contact center to operating, security, fares, mobility plus is on there as well.
Can you give that number, Kane?
Yeah, I can write it down, or you have it there. 1-866-668-3978.
And sorry, what department or where will that get me to?
That's the YRT contact center. So any question, comments, concerns, if you want to book a trip, you can give them a call, and they will have everything and anything to help you out. And then again, on their website, yrt.ca, they have the feedback button way at the bottom, and you can provide written feedback as well, ask those questions if you like.
Thank you. Thank you. So that would be the place to go online if you wanted more information about how to do this.
Yes.
Yes, that's great. Okay.
So I do have 3 more items.
I think we should do, Sheeta, should we receive them all at the same? The motion we have, I don't think is for all of them, or is it?
So through you, Madam Chair, the motion on the floor is that any discussion and comments be referred to staff for action as appropriate and be received. So it will all, when we vote at the end, it will encompass everything. So once Greg's.
Okay, thank you, Greg.
gets all of that needs to be together, yeah.
Okay, so through you, I'll briefly talk about National Accessibility Week, which happened at the end of May. That was one of our communications after our May meeting. So we did have a speaker, Jess Silver, who came and spoke to us on May 27th and May 30th. And she talked about adapted physical activity and really geared towards our sport community and how we can accommodate for our disabled community in sport. And that was really the focus of the talk. May 31st, we had our large community events on Saturday at the Stratford Recreation Complex from 12 to 4, where we had various drop-in activities. We had a sensory swim, we had sensory skate, and we brought sledges over from King Township, which we borrowed from, as well as various gym drop-in programs from seated volleyball to outboard bocce to wheelchair basketball as well. So we brought the wheelchairs for wheelchair basketball over as well to have participants try out the sports. We also had various art activities. So Autism Ontario came to provide tie-dye, shirt tie-dyes, and other arts and painting activities. We had a sensory room set up with our sensory carts, which I showed you our last meeting. So we had a quiet room set up for sensory. And then we had various other community organizations that were in attendance. Easter Seals was there, Special Olympics was there, Autism Ontario, and a few other agencies that were also there, setting up their booths and talking about, I think Children Treatment Network was there, and talking about the various services that they offer in town as well. We did have a magician that showed up as well, did 3 shows, The Amazing Andrew, and he provided our attendees with 3 different shows. So it was I don't know if I mentioned a sensory swim as well, that kind of wrapped up the day. So everything was free for the day for our community as well. Very well attended. We had a capacity crowd in our swim. Our rink was full. Andrew, everyone loved Andrew the amazing Andrew. as he performed his magic tricks. And our gym program again was well attended with the different groups trying it out. So very well received. We had a debrief meeting today, a lot of positive feedback as well. It was our first big event, and it sounds like we will be doing this again next year and the year after and so on, in partnership with our community services team.
Thank you
Along
very
with
much.
that, we also had a lot of drop-in events throughout the week as well. Different sensory friendly programming throughout the week as well. So
It sounds fantastic. Thank you. I'm glad to hear that it was well attended. What would you say would consider well attended?
I would have to say to you, Madam Chair, well over 100 in the pool, 30 to 40 on the ice at any given time, which is quite busy. And I want to say it was about 20 or so per show for Andrew as he participated. Bocce had a solid 10, 15 people that stayed the whole time to play, but then stayed to play basketball. And there was a revolving door in the art room. Hard to say how many people actually entered there, but also Autism Ontario did say that they brought a lot of shirts and they left with not a lot of shirts. So however that number was. So I don't have exact numbers total.
Okay.
We did ask our facility bookings team or our customer service team how many tickets were administered through the day. I don't have that number. But again, just optically, I would say close to 200 plus people in our facility, between 12 and 4.
It's always hard when you do an event for the first time.
Yes.
So it sounds to me like it was very successful.
Yes. Yeah, and again, kudos to the community services team, led by Haley, who's our sport and community development coordinator, and community programs. Franco and his team, our inclusion staff were there for camps to assist, and some program leaders to help out, and a lot of the sport contacts that Haley has through her work with her sport plan as well. We're also in attendance, so big shout out to them as well. So.
Thank you. It takes a lot to put on something like that.
Yes, you did. So two other items. One is an update. One is a request to this committee for feedback. So I'll start with the update. This will be relatively quick. Our townwide parking update. So I did provide an update at our last committee of the different areas. The main focus, I kept it high level. Barrier-free spots were included, EV spots, loading stations, that sort of thing. So I just wanted to provide a little more detail as we did have the consultants take a look at what we heard, or what they heard, I should say. And I was able to look a little more detail at some of the recommendations and provide some further feedback. So I just wanted to provide this committee. Again, we did touch on parking in town earlier in this meeting. So I just wanted to provide that update as well. So there was a big focus on downtown parking. So downtown parking, really Yonge and Wellington area, that does go as far as the McDonald's there on Yonge Street, as far north, by almost up to St. John's. Like that really is that core area of parking that they were looking, but they did centralize it down to the the Aurora Town Square area on Yonge Street and Yonge and Wellington area. And so there was a consideration there to expand barrier-free spaces, both on and off street in that area. So we do have a lot of on and off street parking right in that area, but there is a recommendation to look to expand that. And again, when we're talking about this town-wide parking study, we're talking about town-owned parking areas. So if it's regional or privately owned, this is not included in the scope. This is only town-owned specific. There was a focus on residential parking, consideration to manage the right-of-way safety, accessibility, and equitable access to on-street parking, specifically in and around residential communities, whether it's apartments, condominiums, or houses. what does parking look like in and around those areas. Land development, they actually have a large portion here specifically and explicitly to protect against the potential undersupply of barrier-free spaces. So there is really a recommendation here to not concede to parking limitations or reductions, and those reductions being with the barrier-free spaces. You want to reduce, you can reduce, but not touch the barrier-free requirements. So there is a big portion on that. Again, with land development, that does now start to touch on our accommodations, if you will, with variances and that sort of thing. So to basically not touch or not concede to any barrier-free reduction. We're going to keep it the same, if not continue to exceed, which is good to hear. Parks and trails parking. There is a recommendation to scale parking based on the different amenities and features and the proximity of certain parks to other amenities as well. Town Park is a good example. Lots of amenities, lots of stuff going on. Barrier-free accessible playground in that area as well. We should look at more accessible spaces there versus maybe an Evans Park where it's kind of off to the side in a smaller community off a major street, and it's not an accessible playground. The requirements there will be very different. Probably no parking whatsoever, maybe make the street a little wider to allow people to drive up if they want to access that trail or that playground, but not needing a formal parking structure or parking lot in a smaller playground like that. So those are just a couple of examples of that. And then the final part was micromobility, which are those small vehicles that we're starting to see in town, EV parking, and other emerging technologies that are in space. So the big part here, which I was commenting on, is looking into EV-ready barrier-free parking stalls. So looking into what does that look like. So instead of just building an EV parking stall at the standard, 2,600 millimeters, we will look at building an EV type A space. So having it at wide enough, 3,600 millimeters to be van accessible with an access aisle to get up on a ramp to access the EV station to be able to pay and that sort of thing. So looking into those considerations as well, but also EV charging stations for mobility aids as well, to see how can we provide supply for some of those mobility aids, electric scooters and that sort of thing, to be able to charge while they go into the senior center or whatever the case is. So that is kind of that parking. We hopefully in the next month or two, we'll have a follow-up meeting to really refine what that looks like. But again, I just wanted to keep this committee comprised, as virtually every committee, parking does come up in conversation. So I just wanted to, keep you abreast of the work that's being done as part of this parking study. Along with that, Councillor Gardner, you did mention bylaw. So bylaw is one of the project sponsors here as well, and involved along with our engineering team, our two project sponsors on this project. So we are also looking at other parking strategies. So one of the items, Councillor Gardner, you mentioned, our multi-year accessibility plan specifically. So one of the items on the plan is looking at technology to curb accessible parking and how we can track accessible parking within our community. At the GO station, we have how many parking is on each floor, kind of those signage. But can we do that in town and say how many accessible parking are available? So before you get down to town square, ahead of time, looking through an app or online, whatever the case is, how many accessible parking spots are available before you even get them, right? And so that, again, that emerging technology portion of this town-wide parking is also included. They're also looking at it from a perspective of bylaw enforcement. Are you parking there and has your vehicle moved? We now have sensors on the ground or above ground. And has your vehicle moved for X number of hours? And if not, kind of triggers bylaw to go and investigate, and if those so happen to be in barrier-free spots, it really triggers bylaw to, hey, someone's here, we can now go investigate. So those are some of the additional features that are being looked at in this study. So again, we talked about all of these features, and I just wanted to let you know the consultants are looking into a lot of these things. Again, may not be feasible. Back in 2023, we did look at this item. I did flag it, I closed it. It was not feasible at the time, just due to costs. But now that we're having the opportunity to have these conversations, I brought it back up to revisit. So although it's an item that I've considered as closed, not possible, it may still be possible now that we're looking at this overall parking study. So it remains to be seen if that's possible. That's just one item as it relates to parking and what we can do in town. I do have one other item, but if anyone has any questions on parking before I finish.
Oh, you're on mute, Councilor Gardner. Oh, you're still on mute, sorry.
Say no, she's not saying anything.
Thank you. I couldn't, why couldn't I unmute it on my iPad, Sheeta?
I'm not 100% sure, Madam Chair.
Sorry,
but
that wasn't a fair question. Who is the lead on this parking study, please?
To you, Madam Chair, would be Alex Gray.
Okay, Alex. So Alex is the
Manager of
manager.
bylaw, and Nancy, manager of engineering, I believe are leading this. So our traffic analyst, I believe it's Michael Back, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
Is working with the consultant directly. So there is part of the study is on enforcement, part of this, which is why Alex is involved. And then part of the study is with engineering, as we look at resurfacing and the road work that's being done, as well, and traffic, curbing traffic as well. So it's kind of why the two of them are included there.
Thank you. This is a long time in coming. I don't know if any of you at the table or on Zoom have called me about parking, but it's in some areas where development hasn't planned enough parking on site. The residential streets have a lot of parking and parking, all day parking, which is a problem for local residents. So we've been waiting a long time for this. So, but I'm really interested in the information you've given us. Thank you. And you said there's one more thing?
Yes, yeah. So through you, Madam Chair. So again, as the intent of this roundtable, again, is to just apprise the committee of all the work that is happening, my involvement in our organization and how accessibility falls. Probably in September, we'll have another big update as we're going through the budget process now and looking at all the different items that are coming to the table, and how accessibility falls into all of those. So my goal here is just to educate and advise, provide those updates to this committee. By all means, if any of you have any questions, even afterwards, reach out to me, give me a call, send me an email, whatever the case is, and we can chat about any of the items after the fact. But the last item here, I want to just really ask for your feedback, thoughts on evacuations. Is the topic specifically, procedures? I'll just bring up some examples, but I do have really two questions that I want to really ask the committee. Is it something I'm currently working on and in the works, but in just to ensure that nothing's really missed? I have two questions. So I'll ask the questions first, and then I'll kind of explain. The first question is, what do you want to see? How would you like it to be seen? And the second question, which I think is really important, is how would you like to be evacuated during an evacuation process? So those are the big two questions. I know it's very open-ended and vague, but the goal here, the idea here is, we're looking at towns. Let's take Town Square, for example. We just opened Town Square. We have a 250 person performance happening upstairs on the 3rd floor. Fire alarm goes off. There's a fire in the building. We need to get out of the building. Typically during fires, elevators don't work. So if you happen to be, if you know somebody who has a disability, if you have a disability, family, friend, any case, you are with them at that center, you're there on your own, you have no one else to assist. Just thinking of those aspects, how do you want to see yourself evacuated off that 3rd floor of Town Square? This can be at any building. So I'm just using Town Square as an example just because it's new, it's there. What would you like to see? How would you like to be evacuated there? So I would like to turn the floor over to the committee, Madam Chair, just to get some feedback. Again, my plan, my thoughts here, again, a typical fire evacuation process is a defend and hold, a defend in place, meaning we get to the stairwell. Those that can evacuate and walk down the stairs will. Those who cannot will stay at the stairwell. Doors will shut. We will wait for the fire department to arrive, come up to get you, and then bring you down in that. So that is currently what most organizations do. I would like to push that and look further. And you have some ideas, but before giving all my secrets away, I would like to hear from you on this topic.
Anybody want to respond?
Can I ask something?
Okay.
If someone has a disability, why would they be on the 3rd floor in the first place? Why not?
We took the elevator.
They took an elevator.
Yes, but they can't come down, so why not give them special seating that they can
First
see,
floor.
yeah.
It's the way the theater is planned, it's on the 3rd floor.
So it's the 3rd
So I
and
haven't
4th.
been there yet, obviously.
No way. So yeah, it's a 3rd and 4th floor. So the back of the multi-performance hall is the 4th floor, if you will. So that's where all the staff and the boxes, but you can be up there. And then the accessible seating, because it stairs all the way up, is on the main level, but that's on the 3rd floor. So the main floor is the customer service desk, and then the elevator to go up or down to the ground.
Yeah.
So the main floor and the bottom floor where the cafe is accessible, leads out to the center area, the auditorium there. The main floor leads to Victoria Street. So that's where the accessible Berry Food washroom, customer service desk, and the level to the bridge is, which is also the 2nd floor to the library. So again, if you need the libraries there, you're on the 2nd floor of the library. The only way out is to go through the library, through the bridge, and then zigzag your way out to the other side where Victoria Hall is. And then if you're on a performance or in Brevic Hall, which is the other hall upstairs, or in the museum, all of those are on the 3rd floor.
Well, obviously the theater wasn't planned with accessibility in mind, should the elevators not be working, but it is as it is. If there's no comments to your question.
I've got a comment.
Oh, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Sorry, my hand doesn't go up very high these days. I'm a Chicago fire person. I watch it till the cows come home, I'll tell you. One thing I would suggest, and I've seen it done in their show actually, and I think it's a really good idea, is that why couldn't that floor have at either end of it, no matter wherever the roads come in or wherever the people are coming to get them or help them out, why couldn't there be a door instead of a window? We'd have a window on it, and then you'd have the door there. And then when the fire people came, they could be opened and let them out.
You mean, sorry, on the 3rd floor? A
Yeah.
door?
Facing the square,
Yeah.
are you talking about facing the
You're
square?
gonna have you're gonna have a window in it, but the rest of it continues as a door. But when the firemen come, they can open it, and then those people can be released from there. Firemen would take them down.
On the outside of the building, sorry, I'm just trying to.
I
Well,
can't-
wherever, that's what I'm saying, whichever end, they have accessible use to come in with their trucks or whatever they have.
In the ladders?
In the ladders, they take the ladders up, but they can bring them down because they put them on small, what do you call it? Stretchers, but they're not stretchers, they're just like plastic ones, and they slide up and down whatever they call it, I guess the ladder, basically. But they're just like small ones, they go down, then put them on. You know, if they needed a stretcher, they put them on a stretcher. But they do it quite regularly on that show, and I think it would be a way to release people out of that floor. The only way it could be unlocked maybe is by controls, or the people in the building controlling it will only unlock it when the fire department's there, or the fire department would have to do it from outside with some box or something they have. But I think if
Called
it
an
was done.
axe. Called an axe.
An axe will do it, yes. But I think if you had
I'm not
something
sure.
at either end, if they had, like, I don't know what the upstairs is like, but if you have one whole area, or if it's two different rooms or whatever, I think that's one way to do it. And I've seen slide them down those ladders a number of times on that show, and I think it's really something.
Well, Joanne, it's very, I'm sorry we didn't have this comment before we designed it, because we've got a huge piece of glass on the third floor that overlooks the square. And it would have been a really good idea to have the ability to open that glass.
You didn't ask a woman, you just asked
But
an engineer.
Well, but I'm telling you, it's not gonna happen now. I don't think. Greg, you got any comments on that?
Yeah, I think that comes with other safety concerns, and I'm not sure if that's in our Ontario Building Code as a requirement
Right.
or not.
Right.
Again, Chicago Fire being in the States, they have different, it's a TV show, it's a cool idea.
No, I'm just
But
saying
I'm
I
not
saw
sure,
it, that's
yeah,
why I'm saying.
I'm not sure if that's a building code opportunity here. John, before I continue, and I saw your hand up.
Sorry?
John?
I said before I continue, I saw your
Yeah.
hand go up.
Okay, for the aerial trucks and so on, they have to be access that area. So if they're in
That's what-
the town
that's-
square, can't get a truck underneath there, right?
No.
So it has to be
I
on,
just-
either on the other two sides of that building, I guess it is. But I guess they should have designated mustard stations, right? And more or less an assembly area. Maybe have some sort of control that would give an indication that there is somebody in that mustard station or the assembly area for the fire department. Whether it's a strobe, a beacon, or something,
Place
but
where they-
there are things that are available. I'm just thinking from my industrial background,
Thank you.
that's what we had in place.
So mostly, although I have had somebody who sat at the very top row who had an accessible issue because they went out through, there's an elevator, the service elevator, but I got to tell you, it was a long walk to get to that, very convoluted. So there would be an area where people who needed, John, to you, people who needed help would meet.
Right. I think the schools have something set up. I think St. Maximilian Kolbe, they have an area set up that the kids would be assembled in that area. Those that have like a mobility issue, the fire department is aware. Those are the first areas they go to. They have to clean those areas out.
How would fire get into the theater area?
An axe.
Well, I don't think an axe would break through
No.
those.
They've got
Pardon?
all sorts-
Yeah,
But is there not a stairwell?
yes. There's a
Probably in
stair,
that area there.
but
Because they want to get in there quickly and get them out quickly.
Yeah.
Again, it's life over dignity too, as well, to get them out.
Yeah.
right. Okay, so they would use this, there's a stairwell at the back of the
Right.
theater.
Have proper signage that says this is where you go if you have a disability.
Greg, could you make sure in all of our public spaces we should have that? Lois?
I just wondering, I don't know, John, you might be able to answer this because you've been here a long time, but when the cultural center was built, did the AAC advise on this?
Oh,
Very briefly. It wasn't like the design was already done. It's more or less, here
no,
you go, rubber stamp it.
Oh, okay.
the committee was advised on, we had a few designs, whether it was going to, at what level the entrance was going to be, and parking, and the AAC did get consulted on that.
Right.
And the person who gave his comments has never been on a committee since. Same happened with the library board. Accessibility was not really, in my opinion, considered, let's say, could have been considered more fully with respect to the parking and how you get down to the square. Anyway,
We saw some design features, but never
Yeah.
anything concrete. Nothing
So,
that-
so could I make a suggestion that whatever is considered, that you consult with the fire department and ask them for, because there are
Is
things
there-
that can be used
Has there
and
been,
such.
have there been?
But I would go to the source to get ideas, I'm sure you will.
I'm sorry, who is the source?
The fire department.
The fire department. Yes, well, and actually Greg, the fire department must have passed it. So that
But
would,
we're looking at a scenario that probably wasn't brought up at the time.
yeah, but fire would have to, before we build anything, fire to approve it, but,
You have the proper sprinklers, you have the proper exits, you have the doors, closing doors, etc. But to clear people out may not have been considered.
If I may, Councillor.
yes.
So through you, sorry, just to, I guess, bring it back to the original question. So, I mean, there's a lot of discussion here. You know, we did assess Town Square. The Town Square came back as 100% accessible in our assessment. You know, I think there's things that can be looked at differently. Things that, you know, processes and procedures. I think at this point, some of the things that are being brought up and discussed, not so much with the plan itself, not so much with the elements in the plan itself. No, at this point, no facility has an elevator that's going to work in a fire. It's the nature of the mechanics and that sort of thing. In a fire, the elevator will drop to the main floor in any building, in every building in town.
Yeah.
I've heard of elevator companies looking to see if we can insulate these elevators and make them usable even during a fire. It sounds like that's a ways away. John, all of the comments that you listed as well about extinguishers and lights and waiting area, all of that has been considered. So I just want to bring it back and re-clarify that, you know, my question is, you are on, even let's say the second floor of the Aurora Family Leisure Complex on the walking track, the alarm goes off. Are you comfortable waiting in the stairwell till the fire department comes, if you have a disability, or do you want to get out like everyone else, and regardless of what that building is? So I'll be a little more direct in my question here and ask exactly that. A, are you comfortable waiting in the stairwell for fire department to come? Or B, would you like to get out like everyone else?
But if you
Uh,
have a mobility issue, you may not be able to get out like everyone else.
Right.
Okay, so that leads me into my secrets. So what we are looking at is an evacuation chair. We do have one at the Aurora Family Leisure Complex on the second floor currently.
Yes.
We also have one at Town Hall in the back in the garage. That's hiding. We, I believe, have one at the Stronach Recreation Complex in the back hall. And so the idea behind these chairs is if you are in a mobility device, if you are unable to get down the stairs quickly, that sort of thing, these evacuation chairs are designed to go down the stairs. They do have tracks on the bottom of them. It's built on friction, so it doesn't go down fast, it goes down slow. Someone at the top is holding, and as you walk down the stairs, the chair goes down the stairs with you. All you do is you transfer yourself from your mobility device, or if you are mobile, sit on the evacuation chair, sit down, strap yourselves in, and then basically wheel down the stairs and get out like everyone else. So that is the alternative way to evacuate in an emergency rather than a defend hold position where you are waiting in the stairwell. John, you alluded to schools earlier, and Lois, you talked about conversing with Central York Fire, both of which I've done. Central York Fire is in full support of evacuation chairs in our facilities. Their only request is put it on the fire plan if you're going to do it, so that they are aware that these chairs exist. They do come and bring one should there be a need, but they're bringing one. In a 250 person performance, we may have more than. So the idea here is we may have, and where's the fire? For those of you that have been in Town Square, there's lots of entrances, lots of exits, lots of stairwells, lots of ways to get in and out of that facility. So where's that fire going to be? We can't guarantee it's going to be in one place or another. So having these evacuation chairs from the library onto the bridge, throughout the Town Square side, throughout the Culture Center side, the whole building encompassing that whole facility, we're looking at about 8 or 9 chairs throughout the whole facility to ensure no matter where you are, we have a chair that can get you. These chairs can't be used by yourself. You do need to have somebody to assist, but as part of the fire plan, we do have staff that are responsible for making sure there's no one left in the building. And as part of that, we will look at training as well to ensure that everyone is aware of how these are used. So you might, if you cannot, Lois, you cannot get down the stairs. Councillor Gardner, you mentioned temporary disability, cast, broken ankle, whatever the case is, you're on crutches, you might need some time. Well, have a seat on the chair and staff can potentially evacuate you with everyone else.
Greg,
So
okay, thank you. I have a question, because on the second floor of the leisure complex, there is something that looks like I don't know. It doesn't look like a chair. It's on the wall there. So that is an evacuation chair?
To you, Councillor, that is correct.
Okay, because I was asking Mr. Furman, I don't know, one of the staff, what that was, why it was there, and why it wasn't on the main level. But I guess my point is all staff needs to know what that is, where it is, and what it is. Because there's, for example, there's no staff on the second floor of the leisure complex. So somebody would have to come up from downstairs.
So to you, Madam Chair, so the chairs were previously purchased with the understanding, these were purchased many, many years ago, with the understanding that if there's a public or a patron there with somebody with a disability, that the chair would be available to them to use themselves. It was never an understanding that staff would be trained and therefore responsible.
Okay.
What I'm looking to do is bring these chairs in and therefore train staff. And as part of evacuation, we would annually train during a fire drill, we will practice with it, and staff would be comfortable to assist. And if you give me 1 second, what I'm gonna do is just share my screen here to just showcase how these chairs really work. They did come and they did demonstrate it with me. I was a participant on the chair, and they're very easy. I know it's a little choppy because I'm sharing it, but it's very easy to get down the stairs. It's smooth. You sit flat the whole time, so you're sitting like a normal chair. So the chair molds to the stairs. You are sitting straight up. There is a 5-point harness as well. The friction on these, the rails on the bottom really slow the descent. So it's as long as you're holding onto the chair from the top, you're not gonna.
It looks fantastic, but you can't do it yourself.
Correct.
So unless if you're on the second floor of the leisure complex, I mean, not many people on the second floor of the leisure complex. Well, I won't say that. There's a small meeting room, and there's the youth center, and there's the track, but there is a staff in the youth room, but it's not open all the time. But at least
there would be. Sorry to you. There are staff in the building.
yes.
Every staff are, as part of the fire plan, designated specific areas within a facility. Those what we call fire marshals are responsible for checking their designated areas. Typically, facilities is always in the building. Customer service are typically always in the building when the building's open. Even late at night, on the rink side, rinks are at the accessible level, so less of a need. The top floor is pretty much closed off, and that half of the building is pretty much closed off late at night. But facilities are always in the building from open to close. So there's always going to be a staff in a building at any given time. Typically during the day, there's a lot of staff with our recreation staff, our business support staff. They're well attended. I mean, they may be in meetings and that sort of thing. But as part of implementing this process, so again, the school boards have gone from a defend and hold position to we don't want to leave our students in the building while we're outside. So they have actually started to look at these evacuation chairs as well in the schools, so that should there be a need to evacuate a student, they will again try their best, get them onto a chair, and then get them out of the building as best as they can. So we're not leaving patrons, or in this case, students, in our facilities during an emergency. So that is kind of where I've started to look at this. It's been a conversation that I've been looking at. Again, I just wanted to table this with the committee to really ask that question. Would you rather transfer if you could and have a staff help you to get out of the building? Or would you rather just wait for the fire department to come and get you? That's ultimately where the question lies, knowing what these chairs and the capability and what they can do. This ultimately stemmed from, we were doing an assessment at Town Square on the 3rd floor with our individual in a wheelchair, and the fire alarm went off. And my first thought back in October was, how are we getting him out? And so that is where the conversation ultimately started. So we do have options and opportunities, short of building a new door off the side to evacuate others. We do have this chair that very well can assist. They can go upstairs, they can go downstairs, they can be used to transport on the floor itself. So if we have them on the main level, we can also use them to travel between the customer service desk and out to the washroom, so you can use the facilities or maybe help you from the front door into the customer service desk. So these chairs can be used for multi-faceted approaches as well.
I think it's, Greg, thank you. I think it's a very, so really at the end of the day, you're asking if we're in favor of these chairs, and they sound fantastic. I've never heard of it, and it's a lot of good engineering has gone into them. Just that people need to be aware, because what's on the second floor, Like it doesn't say anything on it, what it is or how to operate it or, so it's a matter of education and awareness. For all of you have wonderful ideas. They just.
Do you,
Yeah.
100%, we're ready to have that plan. I've already mentioned it with our communications team. When we were doing the demonstration back in November, we went down into the cafe and there was about 5 or 6 residents there having a coffee. They were so interested in what these chairs were, interested, thought it was a great idea, even the optics of, again, these chairs are here to assist. And the residents that were there seemed like this is a great idea. Again, we're going to have a communication plan in place. We're going to educate. I already chatted with a communications team. I would love to have some photos and videos and social media messaging and news release and media release out there as well, that these chairs are in place. But ultimately, we need to get them in, get them purchased, get them in, get the staff trained, get them in our plans, and that still will take some time. So it's going to take some time before everyone's comfortable and involved. But 100%, yes, I am asking if this is a good idea, if the committee will support this idea.
Well, do we want to have a show of hands to, John, are you a question or a show of hands?
Just a quick one.
Okay.
No huge bearing on it, but what's the cost of each unit?
Yeah.
So through you, Madam Chair, the more we buy, the cheaper they are. It's one of those models. I have been working with them since October. We do have a very good price on the chairs, comparable to the average person or the average organization. I believe, looking at all our facilities in town, if I recall correctly, I want to say there was about 18 chairs in total that we were looking at. And I think the quote came back at just over $20,000. So just about $1,000 a chair. And included with that, because we're buying so many, will come with training and no additional cost. Will come with delivery at all our different complexes and no additional cost. And there's no tax on these chairs because they are mobility devices and medical devices. So therefore, there's no tax on this one. So again, because we're buying so much, the cost is coming down on them, but they're about $1,100, $1,200 each.
Can't put a price on a life, right?
No, it's and thank you, John. And that's 1,000. I mean, if you say $20,000 for, it's a no-brainer. And
that will cover every stairwell in town and every one of our buildings. Second floor, basement floor, left side, right side, upstairs, you name it. We will have it.
Is it in the budget, or how are we going to pay for this? I mean, it's in the budget.
There will be no additional cost, and this is not going to be a capital request either. We will have it covered in our existing budget lines, whether through operating or other projects. It will be covered.
Thank you. Good news. So, is council approving this, or is it just who? No, it doesn't have to come to council.
It's a low value purchase.
Perfect.
Yep. So again, it's more of the committee thinks it's a great idea. I've already sent out emails to staff to see if they have any concerns and to look into the process. Again, I've been working with them since November. We've had a couple of hiccups. These chairs are coming in from Europe, so they will take time. But from my understanding, the company does have them in stock and is itching to get them in town.
Thank you very, Greg. This is wonderful. Thank you.
You can find a Canadian vendor?
Pardon? Yeah, you can't find a Canadian. No, this is.
So they are Canadian.
Well, they're not American.
No, they are a Canadian company, 100% owned and operated Canadian company. These chairs are manufactured in Europe, just because that's where the plant is. But this company is the Canadian distributor for them.
And the maintenance program for them, upkeep, if something breaks on them, is it Canadian or does that be shipped back to Europe for that?
No, so we will, through you, Madam Chair, we will contact the company. They will take care of it for the most part. My understanding, these chairs last a lifetime. They do have a lifetime on the meat as well. They have committed as well, because I have asked the question, to come back annually to just do refresher training with staff. We do have a lot of turnover in staff.
Thank you.
So to ensure that all staff are readily trained. I knew of the chair at the Leisure Complex. I didn't, even while I was working there, my past position, but I was never trained on it myself. And I too was on that second floor. But again, my understanding was that wasn't the intent of putting them there. The intent was, if you have a need and you know how to use it and you can transfer, by all means, use it yourself. At this point, I want to push that program further to say, no, we want to help. And again, I might request, John, if you're there with your family, I might say, hey, can you help me? Right? And if I'm there, I might ask for your help. Patients and the public and the residents typically want to help. Maybe we try to help the transfer, participant will help, whatever the case at the end of the day. I did have a conversation with some other individuals. This wasn't even a topic they even considered. They use a wheelchair for their whole life. And until someone came to them to say, do you have an evacuation plan? They never even thought of them themselves, and they lived their life with a disability. But this wasn't something that they considered.
Thank you,
Because how many
Craig.
times are you in a burning building, right?
I,
Joanne.
no, Sheila, were you trying to get my attention?
No, through you, Madam Chair, just to you, yeah, Joanne had her hand up and had a question, so whenever, yeah.
Thank you, Joanne.
I think that the chairs are a marvelous idea. The only thing that I would question too is that you're going down possibly into the place where the fire is in some instances. And that's why I think some way of evacuating from the top, it would give, like, lots of buildings have fire escapes and stuff like that. So if something could be arranged for, locked doors until somebody opened them or whatever. But I mean, I think the seats are a great idea. But the thing is, I still think that there's a possibility that the fire could be in the bottom and you can't be going down, going into the fire, from that point of view. And another thing I thought of as we were talking about it, and you were talking about making sure there's people there to handle it. If the school programs are still having 40 hours volunteer services, I'm wondering if you could approach Maximilian or Aurora High or somebody and ask them if they have a group of people, so you could use one group, you could train them all, and then you could have one group come in for one event, another group come in for another event.
Joanne, I'm going to stop you because I think there would be a liability issue with that. Having
They get permission.
Pardon? It's a great idea, but and Greg can look at it, but I think that, I don't know, Greg, I think it would be a liability issue.
Yeah, so through you, Madam Chair, we have actually brought up the idea, but again, so according to really the consultants looking at this fire plan, they don't want more people in a building than they need to be. So the least amount of people in a building, the better. So to bring in extra people just in case, and then where are they going to be? And there's a whole other slew of challenges that we might have. In terms of the other concern about stairwell, again, this is why I'm looking at all stairwells. So if the fire happens to be in the north end of the building, we have the south end of the building that we could use to evacuate, and there would be access there. But as well, we would have 200 plus people also attending that same stairwell. If they're all coming running back up the stairs saying there's a fire down here, we will probably be moving to the next one at that point, right? So we will lose
we need
those
to
that can
plan.
populate.
Greg, we need
So
to
we do
plan.
have
Let's hope we
opportunity.
never need it. But I'm
Yep.
glad there's good planning in place, Lois.
Just an extension of that question. According to the AODA, organizations have to have emergency plans for staff with disabilities. So will there be chairs here or in the town, places for staff as well?
Through you, Madam Chair, yes. So everyone.
Part of their emergency plan.
Correct. Every one of our town buildings will have a chair, regardless if it's public access or staff access. We will have one. Our community center, oh yeah, there's one up in our community center, the Tigers Arena, on the stairwell. So we're gonna have one at both arenas, joint operations center, town hall, town square, public library, the Stronach River Recreation Complex, Leisure Complex, the Aurora Sports Dome, and I'm missing one. One other, so basically all
our
our town,
public facilities, there will be.
public or staff are at a facility, we will have a chair.
Okay, thank you.
You have more chairs if the building's bigger?
We will have, through you, Madam Chair, one, we did work with the consultant, so depending on floor space, stairwell, and access and proximity. So for example, I'm going to have a chair in one of the 3 stairwells at the Leisure Complex Arena, because all 3 of those west end exits go up a flight of stairs. These chairs can go up. So if you can't, for whatever reason, get to the back or the front of the building, and you have to evacuate out the side, we will have one in those 3. So I'm not gonna put one in each of the stairwells, just because they're intended to go down. So I'm just gonna put one over there. So we are looking at the space as a whole. Same with the second floor, we have 4 evacuation stairwells to exit, plus the back. Back already has one, so I'm gonna be purchasing one for the front. So we have one in the front, one in the back. Even though we have 3 stairwells on the side, there'll be one, and they will be notified as to which stairwell has it. So if the fire's at the front of the building, we have the back one. If the fire's at the back of the building, we have the front one. If the fire's in the whole building, well.
Thank you. Thank you. We're covered. Lois, is there any follow-up to that question?
No, thank you.
Okay. I think that we've probably finished this section. And so we'll need a motion to receive all of this information. No.
I just want to say thank you.
We have a motion.
Thank you to the committee for your comments. This was helpful. Yeah, just want to say thank you.
Thank you for your amount of work that you spent and time you spent on this. Ashita, we just need a show of hands to receive.
That's correct, Madam Chair. So just a motion to, just calling the vote. That's right.
Okay, all those in favor of receiving all this
Aye.
information?
Aye.
Oh, thank you. There is a new business section. Does anybody have any new business? Okay. Well, then I guess we could have an adjournment.
Motion to adjourn?
Thank you, John. Do you all want to stay? Elaine, make a motion to be the seconder. Thank you. All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you very much.
Enjoy your summer.
Enjoy. Oh yeah.